When you come on, type in your name, where you're from. Hello, hello. There's more of you I can see. Hey, David. Hey, Julie. There's one more. We're going to give it just a couple of minutes so that everybody can get on. Hey, Abner. Oh, you're from Brazil. Long ways off. Hi, Andy. Awesome. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight, I think. I'm sorry my camera's not really great. I'm on webcam, but maybe we'll make it through it anyway. Oh, Lord. So while we're waiting on everybody, why don't you guys tell me, do you have a worm bin already? Yes or no? You used to live in Medford? So when we get started, I want you guys to kind of help me keep up, if you will, with who gets the answers right. For those of you just joining, if you would give us your name and where you're from. And when you answer the question, I want you to put your name as well, because it's hard to keep up with some of you's code names, because some of you just have numbers. So be a little bit hard. Okay, well, it's 2 minutes after, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So I thought this would be something really fun to put together, really as an educational idea to help those that are especially just getting started. But whether you're just getting started with a brand new bin, or maybe on the hobbyist level, or maybe even you're trying to go commercial, each week we'll have different questions, and I thought it would be really good um, to do this so that you could help learn, as well as just having fun and getting to know a lot of you. Um, wow, somebody's got 15,000 worms. I think that is, who is that? Oh, let's see. That was Julie. All right. Hey, Randy from South Carolina. Awesome. Yeah, if you guys could put your name after your answer, because a lot of you, like I said, have numbers and stuff, so I don't know how to call you out. So it would be great if you guys could put your name after your post. But anyway, when we get started, and you um, whoever gets the answer correct first is the winner for that question. So if you guys could kind of help me keep up with watching the comments, I think this is going to be very exciting. All right, so our first question, and remember, you have to be the first one to get it right. And sometimes there could be more than one answer that's correct, but we're going to go with what's on my sheet just for simplicity and to keep it fair. I've got the cheat sheet here. Which worm is best for compost bins? You can answer. Reds. All right. There's a lot of words that are red, or a lot of worms that are red. You got to be more specific. All right, Andy, you got it. Redwigglers. That's the word I was looking for. The rest of you were probably right in the beginning, but you didn't have it together. So we're going to give this one to Andy. Okay, second question. What do worms eat most of in a bin? This one's a little bit tricky. What do worms eat most of in a bin? All right, we got microns, thank you, microorganisms, microbes, carbon. Keep guessing. Depends on what you put in the bin. Anybody else got a guess? Microbes is what I would have put also. But the word that I was looking for was decaying organic matter. So we'll leave that one for now. Ready for the next one? Type yes if you're ready. I'm gonna get you guys involved. All right, type yes if you're ready. The next one's gonna be really easy. All right, I got 1, 2. Ads? Is there an ad? Can somebody tell me, was there an ad that popped up? Because I don't see an ad. Okay. Next question. There shouldn't be any ads popping up. I'm sorry. Everybody's starting to call me now for some reason. Hadn't nobody called me all night. Okay. What should bedding feel like? When you handle your worm bin, what should the bedding feel like? Moist? Cold? How do you know when you have the right moisture? How do you know? By what feel? What's it supposed to feel like? I'm giving you some hints. You got it, Will. Wrung out sponge. You got spoons, but I knew you meant sponge. All right, 5287 Will, what is your name? 5287 Will. I'm assuming your name is Will, but is that correct? All right, you got that one right. Question number 4. Julie. See, I told y'all I couldn't keep up with these names. Next question, number 4. Do worms have lungs? Do worms have lungs? Abner got it right. Why do they not have lungs, Abner? How do they breathe if they don't have any lungs? Through their skin. That's correct. Abner got that one. What happens if your bin gets too wet? What happens if your bin gets too wet? Anaerobic. Correct. How do you know when it's anaerobic? Other than we know it's too wet. What other indicator will tell you that it's anaerobic? Smells, that's correct. Will that harm your worms? If your bin goes anaerobic, will that harm your worms? Is that a no to that question or to a different question? Okay. So anaerobic conditions can harm your worms because anaerobic conditions, there is no air or no oxygen in that bedding. And what happens if the worms eat that is it causes gas, which can cause protein poisoning, which in turn will kill your worms. So you never want your bins to become anaerobic. And smell is usually a really big indicator. As well, if you see standing water or really moist conditions, especially at the bottom of your bin. And yes, you can correct it. How would you correct it, Julie? What's the best way to correct an anaerobic bed? Add dry carbon. Yep, that's right. That's right. Add cardboard. Cardboard is a carbon. Hey, Larry, good to see you. Dry bedding. Yep. Carbon. Yep. Very good. You guys know what y'all are talking about. I'm impressed. All right. Can you tell me one good worm food? Yes, it has been a while, Larry. I'm so glad to see you on here. Glad you found me. Miss you on our calls every week. Manure, that's a good one. What's the one thing that everybody, if you just started trying to learn to worm farm, what's the one thing that you read online to feed your worms? We can use manure, we can use chicken layer, vegetable scraps or kitchen scraps, bananas, correct. Um, all of those are correct. The manure, the chicken layer, the veggies, the kitchen scraps, bananas, all of those are correct. Um, I will tell you this, those are they're really fine for any composting worm, but if you're trying to grow fishing worms like the European night crawlers for fishing, that is not what you want to feed them. And if any of y'all are interested in how to learn to grow worms and get them big enough for fishing, we do have a course on our site for that. Because everything that you read online is about composting worms. There's nothing online that really tells you how to grow worms for fish bait size. So if you're really interested in that, we have a course. It's $59. It's really cheap. Not using that to promote, but I just thought I would throw that out there for y'all. Um, Name one food that is bad for worms, something that you wouldn't want to put in your worm bin. I think you can feed food scraps to African night crawlers, Julie. I'm not real familiar with the African night crawlers. The African night crawlers and the Canadian night crawlers I've never really raised. I've played around with the African night crawlers, but it was just too much because their conditions have to be a certain way. You can actually feed them citrus, just in moderation. Oils, that's correct. Oh, the course. No, the course is just strictly for the European night crawlers. I'm sorry. Yeah. I don't know a whole lot about the African night crawlers, to be honest with you. But for the Euros for fish bait, that's what we use in our courses on that. What next question? Y'all ready? Um, what do worms produce? This is an easy one. What do worms produce? Every worm produces it, no matter what kind it is. Cocoons, that's a good one. Babies, eggs. There's one other thing. There's one thing we're looking for. Black gold. That's it. Castings. Good job. Are worm castings fertilizer or soil? Are worm castings fertilizer or soil? Neither. Larry says fertilizer. Both. You're correct. It is a natural fertilizer and a soil amendment. Is that Julie? Okay. Number 10. Do worms like it light or dark? This is easy one. Dark. Real countryman got it. Awesome. 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 You guys are awesome. Yep. Worms like it in the dark. Okay. Y'all ready? Where do worms lay cocoons? Where do worms lay cocoons? In their bedding. Real countryman. What's your name, Real Countryman 47? If you don't mind sharing it anyway. You don't have to give your last name. Randy. Awesome. Randy got that one right. All right, next question. What color are most worm cocoons? What color are most worm cocoons? Have a good night. See you next Tuesday. Julie, you got honey. Larry, you got it. Yellow to brown. I guess, Julie, you could say honey, but the word we were looking for was yellow to brown. They start out yellow 99.9% of the time, and then they'll turn a darker color as they're getting, I don't know why there would be a commercial popping up. I'm sorry, y'all. I'll have to look into that because we shouldn't have commercials during this. I'm not seeing any commercials on my side. So I apologize for that. Oh, well, I'll have to look into that. This is the first live I've ever done like this for this long. So I'll have to look at that and see what's going on because it shouldn't be. I didn't know there was no such thing as having commercials in the live. That's crazy. Okay. Next question. Oh, Lord. All right, y'all. How many babies can hatch from one cocoon? How many babies can hatch from one cocoon? 4, 1 to 3. Anybody else? 6 and up, Julie. Give one more second for another answer, and then I'll tell you the correct answer. So, in actuality, Randy got it right, and so did Larry. The answer is 2 to 5, and most of the time it's 1 to 2, to be honest, unless you just have some really good um uh conditions. Most of the time it's going to be 1 to 2. Can worms survive freezing temperatures? Can worms survive freezing temperatures? Not my Andy. Can worms survive freezing temperatures? Gotcha. Okay, so Andy got it correct. No, not freezing. Julie got it correct also, because it's no to worms, but cocoons can. So, oh, Larry, did you lose yours last month? Or they did this month? They froze? Actually froze? Or did they just get really cold? Larry. Andy, I think you got a delay in yours posting. Let's see. Okay. Ideal temperature range for compost worms. We're talking redwigglers, European nightcrawlers, Andreas. We're not talking Canadian nightcrawlers or African nightcrawlers, but we are talking about the others. What is the ideal temperature range for composting worms? Larry says 70 to 80. Randy says 75 to 85. Both of those are good numbers. 40 to 90, Julie. Y'all are all close. The answer is 55 to 80. But honestly, if you want reproduction, it's 68 to 78 for reproduction, which is where I stay at. Because I want them to reproduce just as many as I can. Your cocoons have been all brown. Andy, what kind of worms do you breed? Because I know the red wigglers and the Europeans start out yellow. Now they will turn a brownish color as they get closer to hatching, but they usually start out a lemon color, yellow. What helps prevent bin odors? What helps prevent bin odors? Larry, you got it. Carbon. Adding dry bedding will prevent odors. For those of you who feed food scraps, especially if you're new to this, please, please, please make sure you're putting down some dry carbon before you put down food scraps, because as those food scraps break down, they're going to produce a lot of water or moisture, and that will cause your bin to go anaerobic, which can really cause you a lot of problems. So just make sure you put some carbon down first, which is dry cardboard, peat moss, whatever, and then top those food scraps again with that dry material. That way, as it breaks down, it soaks that up. Um, yeah, no, Andy, I think yours is lagging for some reason. Um, I'm not sure why. Internet connection or something, maybe. But hopefully you'll hang in there with us anyway. I think this is fun. I think it gives people a lot of knowledge, at least if you're new. Um, so, question 17. Do worms eat fresh food or rotting food faster? Do worms eat fresh food or rotting food faster? Fresh food or rotting food? Larry, you got it. Rotting food. Why? Why do they eat that faster? Why don't worms like fresh food? Why do they want it after it starts breaking down? What causes it to break down? What causes it to start to rot? What do worms eat? I'm giving y'all some. They have no teeth. That's correct. They slurp the bacteria. Cardboard. That was late, Andy. Andy, try going out and coming back in, and maybe that'll fix your lag. I really hate to see you go. I don't want to see you go. I want you to get in where you can get in on the phone, though. They eat the microbes as they're decomposing. That's correct, Julie. A lot of people think that worms eat, our food scraps, but they don't realize the worms are actually after the microbes, not the food scraps. The microbes causes the food scraps to break down, and until that gets mushy soft where the worms can slurp that uh, those microbes into their mouth, they can't just go take a bite out of an apple. They have to wait till that apple breaks down, which it's the microbes that breaks that apple down, and that's what the worms are actually after. So that's why we encourage people when they setting up a new bin, and they're ordering their worms. You don't want to get your worms in the same day that you're setting up your bedding. You want your bin set up a good week before you get your worms in, because you want those microbes to start on those food scraps that you've put in there. And if you don't have some castings to start that microbes in the bin, um, you can take just a little handful, not a lot, but just a little handful of soil out of the yard to start your microbes in your bin. Just don't overdo it. Worms don't want to live in dirt. A lot of people, I can't tell y'all how many people have set up their worm bins with dirt out of the yard. So, um, rotten food. You're right, Andy. Rotten food, fresh food, rotten food. They stay away from decomposed. They don't stay away from decomposed. I don't know if that was a mistake, but they go after decomposed food. Um, because it's the microbes that they're after. Um, this is one thing that I think a lot of people get, this next question that I have, that a lot of people get hung up on. And I want to tell you guys to just try to keep things simple. Um, but I've read on some other platforms where people really get hung up on this, and I can tell you, if you just watch your worms, they'll tell you whether they're happy or not. But anyway, what pH do worms prefer? What pH do worms prefer? Seven. Randy says 7. Larry says 7.5. Julie says 7. And that's correct. Between 7 to 7.5. So anyway, it's neutral to slightly acidic. Slightly. So neutral is kind of where you want to try to keep it. What mineral helps worms digest their food? What mineral helps worms digest their food? Calcium. Hey, Greg, good to see you on here. You must have snuck in on me. Andy, you said calcium. Can you elaborate a little bit more? What kind of calcium? Or Julie, you said calcium too. What in the form is calcium? Grit. That's correct. What are some of the things that we use for grit? Eggshells. That's good. Let's see how many of you know me. What is my favorite grit to use? Who knows what? You can use coffee grounds in moderation. Randy, you can use sand, but I'd use that very sparingly because that does wind up in your castings. And if you're selling castings, people really don't want to see sand in their castings. I can tell you that from experience. Oyster shell, Julie, you got it right. Larry, you got it right. Y'all know me. I love oyster shell. Oyster shell flour. We grind oyster shell down to a flour, and that's what we use. What else is oyster shell flour good for? Or calcium? Other than just the grit, what else is it good for? Because there's one other thing that it's good for. Actually, it's a couple other things I could tell you it's good for. Anybody know? Other than just their grit? Does anybody know what else oyster shell flour is good for? Helps with their pH. That's correct, Larry. pH. Yes, Julie. All right. And one other thing. I might teach Larry and Julie both something tonight. I know they're in my classes. And I don't think we've talked about this a lot. But calcium or oyster shell flour or eggshells also help with cocoon formation. So that's what keeps them safe, helps them to develop. And a lot of people don't know that or realize that. So that's why another reason why you want to use, your calcium, your eggshells, or your oyster shell flour. That's why I say kind of stay away from sand. Sand does help with their grit, but it doesn't give them any other calcium. It doesn't help with the pH either. And then, like I said, a lot of people don't want sand in their castings. So I'd be very, very lightly using sand in your bins, especially if you're selling castings. Cocoon development. Hey there, little lady. How are you? Good to see you on here, Worms and Gardens. You just snuck in on me, but it's good to see you. All right. What does a healthy bin smell like? What does a healthy bin smell like? You just got home? Earth. You got it, Larry. You got it. Worms and Garden for our fellow people here. Can you give us your name? I know your name, but would you like to type your name so that people know who you are? You don't have to, but introduce yourself. Julie. Greg, you're correct. Also, earthly. Yeah. We turned some beds today, and I'm telling y'all, when you're turning those beds and you smell that earth, it's earthy smell. It's just like after rain when everything smells so good, or when somebody just cut their grass and you smell, it's just such a wonderful smell. That's when you really know you got a really good worm bin, is when you can really smell that earthy smell. Okay, these next questions are a little bit, I won't say they're harder, but they're maybe a teeny weeny bit. They're more maybe for somebody that's had a bin for a little bit. I wouldn't say for a long time, but for a little bit. So we're going to get into these. We're planning to do an hour. We're about halfway through. So you guys just stick with us, and let's just make it fun. And if you have any questions, while we're waiting on answers, we can talk about some of that too. So if you guys have some pressing questions, I wouldn't mind answering some questions for you. All right, next question. What species is a common composting worms? And there could be several different ones. So I'll give you, you know, I'll give it to you as long as it's a composting worm. But there is one that I'm looking for mainly. What species is a common composting worm? It's actually the number one composting worms. Redworms, correct. That was the one I was looking for. Redwigglers, European nightcrawlers, African nightcrawlers. You're right, Andy. All of those are good composting worms. But the number one composting worm is the red wiggler. What is another composting species often sold? Which Andy kind of wrapped that up, but there's one he didn't have listed in there. And if you are a customer of mine, I would say Larry and Julie, you two could probably, maybe even Worms and Garden, would get this right. There's another composting worms. You don't hear about it a whole lot, but I do sell them. And they are my favorite. So let's see if any of y'all know which one that is. Come on, Julie. I know you got to know. Andreas. Correct. Andreas. It is Eisenia andrea. They are a cousin to the Eisenia fetida. but they are my favorite worm because they get a little bit bigger, and they start they go through the material faster. They handled the winter. When we were having this winter storm last week or the week before, they were still mating and still plowing through the material. My red wiggler Eisenia fetida were way down in the bed. I mean, way down in the bed. I couldn't eat. I had to wait till it warmed up before they would ever come back to the surface to be able to harvest them. And they actually put my shipping behind a little bit because their butts wouldn't come up. So I'm really, really getting to the point. And because they still, um, uh, because they reproduce faster and all that, but they still have the same characteristics as far as the temperatures and all the things that we love about the Eisenia fetida. It's the same thing with the Andreas. It's just you get faster reproduction, bigger worm, not real big, but bigger. You can definitely tell the difference. And they go through the material faster. Um, I do sell more fetidas right now, Larry, but as I'm educating people with the Andreas, those are starting to pick up now. And we're kind of revamping some of our breeding area to add more of the Andreas. And I'm seriously thinking about dwindling down my fetida because I need worms to reproduce fast, you know, and I think this is a great uh, worm for people that are looking, that are beginners, you know, because like I said, their conditions are the same as the fetidas. The blue worms, Greg, uh, those are, what was the question? Oh, another composting species, often so. Yeah. So I don't sell the blue worms, but there are people out there that sell blue worms but claim they're red wiggler composting mix. You got to read the fine print. Andreas are the ones that comes in the living material. Yes, they do, Larry, but we also sell them just like we do the red wigglers by the pound also. When we first started out, we were only doing them in the living material. We were getting our stock up, but I've got 15 bed, no, 15, 60, 18 4x8 beds, and then another 21 beds with those. And I've just cleaned out 27 beds that were the fetidas, and then we pressure washed them, let them sit through the cold that we had, the storm. And I just actually set up a few of those today in Andreas, but we'll have 27 more of them. I'm cutting my fetidas back to only 27 bins, the 4x8 beds, because I really like the Andreas. Let's see. I started out with 90 worms, Walmart special. Andy, do you know what type of worms? I know at Walmart they may say red worms, they may say, something, but do you know what actual Latin word or type worm that you have? This is the thing about buying in big box stores or from the fish bait shops, because it took me a long time when I first started to figure out why the bait shop called these worms red wigglers when everything I got from people that I ordered online were so much smaller. And I was trying to figure out what kind of worm that, was in the bait shops, and it was so confusing. And it's because they market um, the ENCs under red wiggler because red wiggler is such a common name. Um, And it just took me a long time to figure out what type of worm that was. So, no, I don't. I think I take the continue. Um, I mean, if you're just using them for composting, it doesn't really matter what kind of worm you got. But if you do plan to sell, you definitely want to know what type of worms you're selling. Otherwise, you're going to be in the same boat with Uncle Jim's, where people are, you know, confused into what they think they're buying. If y'all will hit that thumbs up for me up there. All right, next question. Are night crawlers good for shallow bins? All right, we've had a bunch of people drop off. Oh, we got them back. Are night crawlers good for shallow bins? Randy says yes. Larry says no. Julie says no. And the correct answer is no. Randy, you want to have them in at least 6 inches or more. You want to start out with about 6 inches and then build up from that so that it doesn't heat up on you. But Euros like to be down about 6 inches. So that's why you don't really want a shallow bin for European night crawlers. You can, start them 2 to 3 inches, but you do need to gradually get them up to a little bit more depth on them. I mean, I start most of my bins out at 2 to 3 inches, regardless of which worm it is, and then I just, go from there. Especially breeder bins. I do a little bit shallower on breeder bins. What happens if food molds? Is it safe or not? What happens if the food molds? Is it safe or not? Or if you want to tell us what happens if it molds. Towers would be considered shallow because they're only about 4 inches. And the correct answer is yes, as long as it's not excessive. So you can have moldy food as long as it's not excessively moldy. Yep. Safe because of the microbial life that the worms like. What about if you're, say your worm chow gets moldy? Is that okay? Food scraps, we know they can get moldy. What about your grains? Anybody want to chime in on that one? So again, even if it's grains, it's okay if it gets a little moldy. You just kind of might want to ruffle the top of it a little bit. Don't really turn it into the bed, but just kind of ruffle it up, and you'll see the worms. If it's getting moldy, you're just putting in too much at one time. You need to cut back, because if you've got so much in there that it's turning to mold, then you could potentially have a problem, because that means you're overfeeding. Grains will heat up, yes. So you have to be careful again not to put too much grains in there. And but yeah, Julie, just ruffling up the top of it, making sure that it's moist. Sometimes if you got too much in there and and it's starting to get moldy, it may have gotten dry. So you might need to, moisten it up again. And like I said, just ruffle it up on that top. And then usually the worms will move right on into it within 24 hours most of the time. How many of you think that it's actually protein that gives worms protein poisoning? Is it protein that gives them protein poison, or is it something else? This is probably for some of you more experienced ones. Is it called protein poisoning because it comes from protein? Julie, you want to elaborate? Larry, you want to elaborate? Okay, so I'll elaborate. So, protein poisoning does not actually come from just protein. It's called protein poisoning because when your bin becomes anaerobic or uh, too moist, where you've got rotting food and maybe you've got too much grains in there, what happens is as that's fermenting and breaking down, it causes a gas. And when the worms eat that material, whether it be in the bedding or in the food itself, it causes a gas, and that gas comes out through the worm, like, through their gut, and it harms the worm, and it breaks their skin, and that's why you see what's called string of pearls, which is the same thing as protein poisoning. It's just two different ways to say it, but it's not just from protein. It's really from overfeeding or having too much of something in the bed at one time, where the worms doesn't eat that up in time before it starts fermenting and putting off those gases. That's why if you smell that rotteny smell, you need to fluff your bin, and get that wet off the bottom to the top where it can dry out some, because it'll smell like, sour, like sour sewer water like. So that's what's going to potentially cause protein poisoning when they eat that material that has that in it, because there's no oxygen in it. But when you fluff it up and, get that air back in it, then and if you've got too much water, add the carbon so that it'll soak up that water and keep it from going anaerobic. You're learning something tonight, Miss Julie. All right, next question. We're getting close to the end of the night. How often should you feed your worms? How often? How often should you feed your worms? This is kind of a trick question. Not really, but how often should you feed your worms? Da, da, da. Once a week, says Randy. Who else? Whenever they eat what you fed them last, says Larry. Who else? Weekly if scraps every 3 days, worm chow, says Julie. And the other Julie says, when you see that the food is gone, which is not too often. And Randy says, I feed breeders every 3 days. Okay. So let me say this. When it comes to feeding worms, this is very, very important, y'all, because this is the number one. Well, let me say, does anybody know what the number one cause of a newbie or anybody else? What is the number one cause of killing your worms? Can somebody tell me that? And then we'll go back to this question. Larry, overfeeding, correct. All right. So, how you know how often to feed your worms can be totally different for each person because it depends on the amount of worms in your bin. It depends on the conditions. It depends on so many variances that nobody can tell you what your feeding schedule needs to be except for your worms themselves. So, Randy, if you are feeding yours once a week, you already know you've had your worms long enough that you know that, that's their cycle. And so that may be fine for you. Where somebody, for me, it's about every 3 days if I'm feeding them chow. If I'm feeding them food scraps, that's a whole different story. It might be 2 weeks. So it depends on what you're feeding them. It depends on the amount of worms you have in your bin. It depends on your conditions, whether it's cold or hot or just right. So there's, your temperature in your bin, um, the age of your worms. I mean, there's a lot of variances. So the one thing that I want to tell you guys when it comes to feeding, especially food scraps, it is better to feed less more often than it is to feed a whole lot at one time because chances of you causing anaerobic conditions in your bin, which can be very detrimental to your worms, that is usually the surefire way to kill your worms. And then if you're feeding them grains, if you're feeding them, I like to make sure that my worms that it's gone within 3 days. If it goes a whole week, then I feel like I'm really putting too much in there. It's better again to feed more often than to put it in there and have it go a week or two. Um, because you'll find you'll have less problems. Hello, hello. Good to see you, red wiggler worms. I see you just jumped in. Um, have a good night, Greg. Glad you were able to get on. We've got a couple of more minutes before our hour is up. Have you guys been having a good time? Is this fun? I really love doing stuff like this. I think it I mean, if you can get one little nugget each week, before you know it, you're all set. You're ready to go, and then it's just to help others. That's one of the reasons why I love doing this kind of stuff because it really helps. Yes, Larry, our Thursday nights are still on. Um, uh, if you'll send me your email address, and I'll send you the link. Um, to get on the call. It's it's really easy. I've made everything more simpler, so I think you can get on there. And if you want to do a trial before we do Thursday, just give me a holler and we'll get on there. Julie, I'm glad you're enjoying it, both Julies. I'm gonna go a few minutes more since you guys are having a lot of fun with it. Let me get a hard question on here. Um, let's see. Okay, here we go. This is going to be our final question. And whoever gets this question correct I'm going to give you a coupon for 50% off of worms, or a pound of worms, or a gallon of bedding, your choice. But whoever gets this right will get that coupon. All right. If a worm bed has perfect moisture, perfect temperature, and perfect food, but reproduction is still slow, what is the most likely hidden limiting factor? This is our final question. You get a coupon for 50% off a pound of worms or a gallon of bedding. Your choice. Whoever gets it right. And Randy says underpopulation. That's not correct. Time of year, Larry. That's not correct. Nope, Julie, time of year is not correct. I'm going to read it one more time. If a bin has perfect moisture, perfect temperature, and food, but reproduction is still slow, what is the most likely hidden limiting factor? Your shoes untied. Oh, Lord. Oh, my goodness. All right, we kind of talked about it earlier, and this is one thing I think that doesn't get talked about a whole lot. Um y'all can I'm gonna let y'all keep guessing until somebody gets it right, and we'll keep talking for a little bit. Um, there is one thing though that most people don't realize, really until you get into commercial, it's not as obvious. But once you get in, where I'm at, it's very detrimental. So if you've got the right moisture, the right temperature, you feeding them, your carbon to nitro is correct, your worms are mature, the worms are not old. There's one thing that causes a slowdown that you can add that will pick that reproduction back up. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. Who knows the answer? Nope, it's not pH. We touched on it earlier. That's a hint. And it had to do with cocoons. Do y'all remember what that was? Julie stumped. We talked about it earlier. It helped helped with the cocoons, formation of the cocoons. Calcium is low. There you go. So it's your grit. So add some more calcium, whether it be eggshells, whether it be oyster shell flour, which you guys know I love oyster shell flour. It's kind of like carbon. It's the greatest thing. Season is, honestly, there is something to say about seasonal, or even too many worms. All of that is correct, but you got to listen to the question. It was, if all those things were perfect conditions, what was the one thing that it was missing? And I'm gonna give you your coupon, Larry. When you send me your email address, I'm gonna send you the link for next week's, and I'll send you the coupon. I think this is a lot of fun. Do you guys want to do this again next week? I'm really thinking about making a week of a Tuesday night. I'm calling it Tuesday trivia. We send out the Wiggle Wednesday. For those of you who are not on our weekly newsletter, make sure you go to my website, Mimi's Worms. Oh, and while I'm at it, let me tell y'all something for y'all that don't know, but we have a new website, MIMIS worms.com. That is Mimi's. It's just a branch of it. That is pretty much strictly informational. I wanted a place where people could go and just focus on educational. The other thing, now we do sell our courses in there, but we don't it's just loaded with information. So if you guys get a chance, go there and check it out. Don't I had somebody freaking out because they thought somebody had tried to clone me, and they were upset. They thought somebody was trying to take my business. And I thought it was so funny. But that is an official Mimi's website. But it does link back to my other website. If you want to buy something in the blogs, it'll have a link to go there if you want to. But everybody knows me knows my website anyway. But it's I'm trying to do things that really brings awareness on how to start a worm bin, how to keep them alive, the things that aren't always obvious, like the calcium if they stop reproducing. Because these are things that, you don't really pick up on the internet. And um, so we want to try to help people learn those little tips and tricks that we've learned along the way. Because I've told y'all I have killed more worms than all of y'all put together. I promise you I have. So I've already done all of that so that y'all don't have to. But do, if you get a chance, go out and check out the other website just to kind of see what it's all about. I just put it in there. And then if you need supplies, you can go to the second website. And we just had our pre-sale. It done extremely well. We have a sale right now, buy one, get one free on your essentials, which is your oyster shell flour, your European nightcrawler bedding, your vermifusion, which is the same thing that we use in our worm bins, the microbial food. And y'all, please make sure if you're buying the microbial food, do not overdo it. It takes just a little teaspoon when you feed. Don't go dumping a whole lot of that in there because it's just too much. It's going to cause a bloom, a microbial bloom. That is not good. So a little bit is all you need. So it's going to last you a long time. I do use extra oyster shell in my breeders. Well, depending on what worm we're talking about. If it's redwigglers or Andreas, yes, I do. If it is the European nightcrawlers for bait, there is a course that I give step by step by step by step by step. You're not going to see it out there on the internet. You're not going to find it anywhere else. Nobody teaches it. But if you want to do for composting, you treat them the same way that you treat any other red wiggler. But for fishing, there's a whole process. And because we sell that course, I'm not going to give out a whole lot of information on it. It's kind of my one little thing that I've learned, and I've really got the knack down. And I don't try to reinvent the wheel. And I know it works because when I first started, I had a lot of trouble with protein poisoning in my Euros. Euros do not like dirty bedding. They want fresh bedding. They're not like the red wigglers. They're not forgiven like the red wigglers are. So, Any other questions? Do y'all got any questions before we call it a night? I've really enjoyed this. I hope y'all have. I'm excited to do it. You can, Julie, you can use the microbial food in a compost tea. Again, I have not used, y'all know I don't make tea. So I don't know how much of it you would have to use. But you could definitely give it a try. I don't see why you couldn't. Um, but I can't honestly answer that because I don't make teas. Um, it's about all I can do to just keep up with selling worms and selling stuff that I don't have to, do. If teas had a shelf life, I would probably uh, look into selling that more, but because it doesn't have a shelf life, I just kind of stay away from it. So, what's my thoughts on biochar? I think it's great. I think you just, again, you don't want to overdo it. I would tell you start out adding a small amount and then increasing to see where you're out. You use about 1 cup of castings to 1 gallon of water. Yeah, again, Julie, I'm not I'm just not I'm sorry when it comes to the teas and a whole lot of castings. There is some things that we're doing on my Mimi's, my MI website. Um, I just did or we're trying to, I don't think it's out yet, but we're making a list. I think it's 150 terminology of the worm farming, what things mean, what the words are, so that when you hear or you read, you'll know what these are. Um, uh, and then we're also doing one on, um, like if you want to say you're growing a certain type of plant and you want uh, your castings to be more fungal based, what foods you would feed your worms to get a more fungal based um, castings, or if it's a more generic, general, overall, just all purpose, what you could feed your worms, or if it's more bacteria, uh, what to feed the worms for that. So we've got some things that we're working on. Um, I have a guy that's helps me, and I'm not sure if we're doing those in a course or if we're just posting those. I'm not really sure yet. I got to find out what his things are. Um, Andy, you need to get you some red wigglers. Well, we've got them, buddy. Just come on over to our website and we'll help you out over there. And for anybody who's new to us, if you sign up for our newsletter, you do get a coupon for 10% off. So I think it's 10% off. And you get a how to set up a worm bin guide as well. But I think this has been fun for me, and I think we'll continue to do this. Now, when we get into spring, we'll just have to see, because we may have to stop for a little while during spring, because I usually get so crazy at springtime, and it's just around the corner for us. Um, I know our little sale just kicked off, and it has been crazy. But if you want us to do this again next week, uh, shout yes in the comments, and so that I know that you want us to do it again. Oh, thank you, Julie. She wrote that she enjoyed my book. We do have a book out. The name of it is Scraps to Legacy. It is not a worm farming book. It is, hey, Dalton, that's okay. You'll be on, we'll do it again next week. Um, Larry, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know yet. We are steadily increasing the guy that I have working for me. You know, he worked at another worm farm for over 20 years. And so he's really helping me ramp up things. So we'll see. But the book, y'all, it's kind of my memoir of my life's journey, and it's very inspirational. And if you want a book that will uplift you when you think that life is hard to go on, and you read this book, you're going to be like, damn, if she can go through what she went through and be where she's at today, anybody can. But it tells you um, through each chapter what I went through, and it gives you a snippet of what I learned through that. And you will get mad, you will cry, you will laugh, you will go through so many emotions. It's about a 2-hour read, but there has not been one person that has not enjoyed that book. And so if uh, if you ever know of someone who, I'm going to get a little political here, and I'm not meaning to, so I don't want to step on any toes, but if you know of anybody who is very young that finds themselves pregnant, and they feel their only option is to get rid of it, you need to have them read my book. Um, because I was a mother at 13, and it was a hell of a life. So, um, but there is so much to be said for that. I'm so proud that I didn't, uh, get rid of my child, and the hell that I was living through uh, while being pregnant. So, um, it's just a very uplifting book, and I want I don't encourage teen pregnancy at all. Um, but if you know of someone that finds themselves in that situation, I want them to know it's not the end of the world. Um, you just have to read the book. It is very inspiring. Um, but it's very raw. You like really learn a lot about Mimi. I don't hold anything back. My life is, I had somebody share with me today. They're like, I can't believe that told some of the things that you told in your book. And I'm like, look, I don't have anything to hide. My life is an open book. Um, I'm not ashamed of any of it. I might have been at some point in time in my life, but you know what? It's my life, and it's what I've been through. And it is what I went through that defined and made me the person that I am today. And I'm a very honest, I have high integrity. Um, I love people. I love helping others because I've been as low can be, and had to get myself up and dust myself off so many times in my life. um but I kept going, and I learned to listen to God, and to watch for when he opens those doors of opportunity, and when he closes those doors, because sometimes God will open doors for us to go through, but it's only for a time, and then that door closes, and you're sitting there going, well, what happened? What did I do wrong? It's not necessarily anything you did wrong. It's just he's fixing to open another door for you, and that door needs to be closed before he can do it. And So I've learned to listen and I've learned to accept. And, I wished I would have learned it a long time ago. But now, just watching how God has blessed me, and I pull up in front of my farm, and I see this huge, 100 by 220-foot building, and I still have to pinch myself sometimes, and and be like, is this really mine? Do I really own this? Surely this girl that went through all she went through does not own this. And it's such a blessing to see how much God has done in my life, and to be able to share all that with you guys and to help people. And when I talk about helping others in this business, I truly mean it. It's such a gift to be able to help others try to get to where they want to be in this business, or if it's just they want to make a worm bin for themselves, to be successful at it. So I've got people that's all they want, and then I've got people that want to duplicate what I do. And I don't mind sharing that. Sometimes it comes with a price though, because we are in business, and we want to help, but we also have to pay the bills too. And so I'm always trying to think of things, to help everybody, and I always try to make our prices affordable, whether it be a course. I'm not out there charging 5, 6, $700 for courses, like some people do. I mean, they're anywhere from 19 to 59.99. I mean, they're not expensive at all. So, but anyway, I have enjoyed this, y'all, and I hope to do this again next week, God willing. I'll be here. I'll post it again in on our Facebook with, it'll be the same time. It'll just be a different uh uh what do you call it? Y'all help me out. A different link. That's the word. It'll be a different link. But anyway, good to see you guys. So happy that you guys made it. If you hadn't hit that little thumbs up, go ahead and do that for me. It does help our algorithm. And this will be posted probably um on our YouTube channel if you want to go back and watch it again, to help with those answers for those of you who maybe missed something, or maybe you got in on it late. I know, Dalton, you got in late. But anyway, we will post your link. Thank you, Dalton, for helping me out with that. Um, and hope you guys will be here again next week. Until then, you guys have a good week. And if y'all have questions, you can always call me. I'm available most anytime, especially in the evenings. All right. Have a good night. See y'all around. Larry, make sure you send me your email so I can send that to you. Good night.